Before you can create a healthy relationship with others, you first have to create a healthy relationship with yourself. Welcome to Let's Talk About It with your host, Dr. Janie Lacy. Janie is a nationally respected psychotherapist, and on this show, she and her featured guests will help you discover and break patterns in your life that can contribute to self-sabotage and unhealthy relationships. Now, here is Dr. Janie Lacy.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacy. You know, when faced with the crisis, it can be difficult in the moment to imagine the experience will eventually lead to some type of growth. But resilience is a person's ability to bounce back from adversity and grow from the challenge. And did you know that research now shows that past adversity can help you persevere in the face of current stress? Well, today's special guest embodies what it means to bounce back after life tries to knock you down. She is Barbara Majeski, a nationally recognized lifestyle expert and mom of 3 from New Jersey, who appears frequently as a top network on some of the top network stations around the country. You can catch Barbara as an on-air contributor to the Today Show, Inside Edition, Good Day New York, and so much more because she is the curator of The Good Life. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Love this conversation. We're going to cover a lot of grounds, aren't we?
We certainly are. So those that are just now being introduced to Barbara Majeski from New Jersey, what can you share outside of all the accolades and all the great things that are in your bio? Who is Barbara Majeski?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I want everyone to know that my television moniker, this new thing is a new thing. Barbara Majeski, an on-air television personality, lifestyle expert, is everything I've invented in my 40s. I was a stay-at-home mom for over a decade and went through chemo treatments for stage 3 cancer. And in the middle of a really difficult battle with cancer, chemo, I don't know which was the battle, chemo or cancer. They were both just brutal. I came face to face with my own mortality. And I realized that if this is where my story ended, I was a little disappointed in the things I didn't do. They always say it's the things that you regret not doing. And that is not just a cliche. It's true because I had left so much on the table. And in the middle of my chemo treatments, I was like, all right, universe, give me one more shot, get me out of this. And I'll never play small again. I'll never let the voices of fear, self-doubt, or the weight of other people's opinions dictate and get in my way of living my best life. And I'm a woman of my word. And I got to the other side of treatment and I was like, let's go. And where you're meeting me today is kind of living out my best life. And I hope to take people along for the ride.
Well, let's go there for a little bit because you have this beautiful post of you standing outside of the Today Show studio and you quote one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown. And you said, one day you will tell the story of what you've overcome and it will become part of someone else's survival guide. So when you reflect back, as you started there, when you reflect back and you think about your own journey and some of your greatest pain points that led to who I know Barbara Majeski to be today, the beautiful Barbara Majeski who I met in New York City. I mean, what has been that journey that's led you to be the woman that you are today? You mentioned chemo.
Oh my goodness, the survival guide quote. And I hope everyone heard that. It's so true. And courage is contagious. So the reason I'm so committed to taking people along for the journey and not just buying into my highlight reel is because I have just kind of learned a lot of strategies and I learned about myself. I understood that I was the only person in my own way. I was the one person that was in my own way. I had negative self-talk. I had self-destructive patterns that started with my thoughts. I was the only person. So nothing changed between, I always wanted to be on TV, The only thing that changed between the Barbara Majeski before cancer and the Barbara Majeski after cancer was I made a mind shift, a mental mind shift. It wasn't, nothing about me changed. I had, a few less brain cells thanks to chemo, but I really just was a little bit older and I had a new strategy for tackling life. So when I changed my mind, it ultimately changed the trajectory of my life. And once I took ownership, instead of blaming conditions, and I decided it was me that controlled the decisions and took action, my life just started to change. It just started moving me in another direction. But until then, I had a lot of negative self-talk. I was like, who do I think I am to be on TV? Who am I to be on TV? Who am I? I'm not pretty enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not short enough. I'm not blonde enough. I am not everything. Saying like, who do I think I am? It became to like, who am I to tell myself who I'm not? Who am I to talk myself out of living my best life? How dare I not eat from the smorgasbord of life? How dare I not take advantage of all the fruits that sit in front of me, all the freedoms and opportunities, and how dare I not try everything that's out there? And I would rather fail trying than fail to try. So once I started changing my mind, I ultimately changed my outcomes. As people ask me all the time, like, how'd you get on TV? You were in sales. You have a degree in health. You were never on TV. And then next thing you know, you're on the Today Show. And I used to always say this, Dr. Janie Lacy. I would always say, I hired a media trainer. Before you can hire anyone, and before you can buy a Peloton, and before you can buy a gym membership, and before you enroll in school, and before you buy all the books, you have to get the right mental mind game. Without that, you're going to start a lot of things and you're not going to finish it. And that Peloton's going to be on eBay. And that gym membership, you're just keeping their lights on, but your behind is not getting in shape. So it's a mental game. I hope that lands. I hope that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Because we do go through these pain points in life. And part of those pain points is just like, if we're preparing for a marathon, where you don't prepare for the marathon when they shoot the gun, we're building a muscle and it's all the hard stuff. But, when people go through things, Barbara, you have a unique spirit about you. And I want you to talk about this a little bit, because people do go through things, but not everyone gets the grit. Not everyone kind of gets up, and the famous Brene Brown that comes from, I think Abraham Lincoln, where, you're down in the arena and, you're getting knocked down and you smell the dirt and you get back up and you start swinging. That's Barbara Majeski. So not everyone has gone through things and is able to come back stronger. So for those people that are listening, talk to us a little bit about, yes, you had this negative self-talk, and then you had to change this mindset because everything was inside of you. But what were some of those things that made you decide that, I can't live like this anymore. I can't not be this person that's thinking this way. And obviously you got 3 beautiful children also that are relying on you.
And you know what? There's so much to dive into here. And it's the man in the arena. And it's Winston Churchill. If I'm getting that credit, the man who's left marred and bloodied, and not the critic. It's not the critic who counts. It's the man in the arena. And it is so true, because that's a great quote. And that's a whole nother dialogue about criticism and critics that really do try to sabotage your journey to self-development and improvement and loving and living the good life. There are going to be a lot of critics on the sideline trying to take away your power and slow down your momentum and question your ambition. And they're not in the arena. They're not in the arena. It's not the critic who counts, that's part of the quote. And that is where daring greatly. I must have that book somewhere in my whole crime scene back here, but I can't find it. But, just to stay on that, I think what I had learned is, for a long time, I painted everything as a negative narrative. And if I could go back and give myself any advice to myself in my 20s, instead of focusing so much on what I didn't have, I would tell my Barbara Majeski in her 20s and her 30s, and I would tell anybody out there, focus on being grateful. Focus on what you do have, because what you appreciate appreciates. And in that, for me, my 20s were like, kicking rocks and feeling sorry for myself, but everyone had more, and everyone was happy. Blah, blah, blah. But I realized through my journey, and what really has manifested massive abundance for me was moving out of scarcity and moving into an abundant mindset, understanding that appreciation appreciates, and it is an exponential growth. That I will say, in that same vein, the reason why I ask people to look at the narratives in their head. So instead of being like kicking rocks about the things you don't have, and what are, if rewriting all sorts of narratives. And I think just from my own, I know from my own personal journey, not feeling sorry for myself, and then making myself not a victim, but a victor. And let me share this story that has come out very recently for me. I went through a very difficult divorce. It was very toxic. It was like, Barbara was in the arena and she was no gladiator. Okay. I had never been divorced before. And it was a sport. Sorry, I had to plug you in. There I am. And it was a sport I really wasn't, I just thought, I don't know what I thought. It doesn't matter what I thought. But what ended up happening, my ex-husband hired very good attorneys. He hired celebrity attorneys, and I was getting my arse handed to me. And it was a slaughter fest, and it was all of my guts and blood all over the arena getting slaughtered. And then at the very end, the case flipped, and I ended up with new lawyers. And it all of a sudden, when the movie comes out about my life, the end scene is like literally at a Law and Order. I walked in. I can't even tell you how this flipped because it was so glorious, and it was all in my favor. I stood tall in the pocket against some really strong attorneys. I didn't buckle. It's a crazy story, but for a long time, I was like, they were abusive, and and I was like, how dare they? And I had this like bitterness and resentment, and it didn't matter that I had won in the end. What it mattered was the toxicity that was imposed upon me. Fast forward, I did a transaction this summer where I bought a shore house. I made a big investment, and it was nerve-wracking. And all of a sudden, there was a little glitch post the process. No need to know the details. The important part was, at the end of the day, old Barbara before being in that arena would have been like, whatever to make them happy. I'll throw money at it. I would contort myself so that make everybody happy. And all of a sudden I had this moment of like, well, what's the worst that they're going to do? Are they going to take me to court? And all of a sudden, instead of being so afraid of court and somebody not liking me and somebody coming at me, I was like, oh wait, no, I just had my ass handed to me, and I am strong AF. Like I was like, oh, they can't hurt me. I'm like, you can't hurt me. You can't do anything that's gonna hurt me. You want to go to the mat on this? You want to take me? I was like, I got this. And all of a sudden, instead of being bitter and resentful and angry, it all dissolved. When all of a sudden I realized that I had now muscles that I never had access to before. When I tell you, Dr. Lacy, I'm tough as nails. And I've always thought I was tough, but now I'm real. You can't hurt me. I'm like, you can't hurt me. Now, if it comes to my kids, you can. But in so many other arenas of life, in business and professional, man, come at me, but I'm going to stand firm. And all of a sudden, because I stood tall in the pocket, because I stood my ground, instead of being a victim, I changed that story. I was like, I'm a badass mother. Like, I am so much stronger because of that. And that is the storyline that I ask everyone to start telling themselves. You are so much stronger because what happened to you didn't happen to you. It happened for you. And you now have muscles and access to resiliency and like, you are a victor. You are not a victim. And I learned that lesson. I was like, I don't identify as a victim. I really don't, but I struggled in that space, and the universe will always conspire in your favor. Trust me, folks. You are stronger because of what you have been through, and you are a victor and not a victim. I think so many of us hold on to bitterness and resentment and anger, and it's drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. And when all of a sudden that it came full circle, and sometimes you have to surrender to faith that maybe what you're going through hasn't served its higher calling yet, but at times all you have is faith and surrender. That's it. You got those two. That's it. A faith and surrender. Universe has my back. I'm going to go ahead and just have faith that this will find servitude. And it's never failed me. I mean, I like, man. And by the way, nobody came at me with a lawsuit. I wasn't wrong in the space, but it was a difficult situation. And I'm so grateful I wasn't afraid anymore. I was like, wait, I'm not responsible for everyone else's happiness. when did I become the happy fairy?
So, I can completely see this picture of you just like, bring it.
I was I mean, it was like stopping in my tracks. Something like, the whole story doesn't need to be told, but it was this moment where I was getting kind of bullied. I had rented out I bought the house with renters, and I didn't want I wanted my house. It's a long story. And I was like, why am I contorting myself when I can just relocate them and do the right thing and offer them an upgrade? And people were like, no, you can't do that. I was like, I am going to do that. And if they don't like it, that's my house. I bought it and I'm going to relocate them. So I upgraded them. So it wasn't off the arm, but people were like, you can't do that. And I was like, I just did. And I would have never done that without that journey of, it's okay to not be liked, and it's okay to go toe to toe with people, and it's okay to go to the mat and fight for what you want. And and I'm not always going to win, maybe not. But I learned, it was an empowering, I've come to a really great place, and I hope it lands with somebody, and understanding that maybe you need to look at your own in dialogue. My marriage ended in a blaze of glory, but I don't know, I have so many stories. So keep going, keep asking questions.
But one of the things I want to highlight is what you're saying is you had either acquired, you had it, you activated its self-worth, because self-worth comes from the inside out, and then self-esteem is other focus. So you had the self-worth, you knew who you were, you knew all those things, and almost with that confidence, right? Because with confidence comes courage. So share with us, and please, I'm using a lot of the quotes I hear you speak about us being in the same space. So correct me whenever I'm off. But you also wrote that, or say that a wise person once said, don't be afraid to start over. This time you're not starting from scratch, but you're starting from experience. And I absolutely love that when I hear you say that. So for those that are listening or watching, and they're coming out of the storm that has led them to have to start over, as you've shared with us on your own journey. I mean, what could you share with them from a practical standpoint, the things that they can do to bounce back, right? To get themselves up and to realize that their future is so much better. Cause I'm sure that you can look back at those moments where you didn't feel like getting up. You post, publicly your pictures from chemo to show where you've been to where you are. And to me, that those are the receipts of your journey. So when you look back at those pictures and you didn't feel like getting up, I mean, what would you say to that Barbara, to those Barbaras that are out there in that situation right now? And they need to bounce back.
Yeah. And I give everyone a big hug who's going through those moments, I'm in the fetal position on the bathroom floor, and I can't see, and Les Brown says, if you can look up, you can get up. And for me, when I've been in these moments, and I just tapped into it, of having faith and surrender, that the universe is conspiring in my favor. I do have that. So even in my most my son, last year, or 2020. So right as we're going into the pandemic, February 2020, my 15-year-old son, he's turning 16 this month. So I'm like, I don't know, he's 14, 15. I turned a corner and he was in a full seizure. I've never seen a seizure. I know nothing about seizures. I just found my son, and he doesn't do drugs. He doesn't drink. This was 3:00 after school. We're practically still watching after school cartoons if they existed. And he's in a full seizure. And it was like, I can't explain to you, like, I didn't even know what's happening. I'm screaming, call 911, and it's a big scene. And from that point forward, we had learned that he has epilepsy. So it was onset puberty epilepsy or something, and what have you. And I was completely unhinged. I was like, I was still going through my divorce. We then hit the pandemic. I ended up in lockdown with my future ex-husband. I had to be in lockdown with my ex-husband, who's already got his girlfriend in another house down the street and her kid. And and he's just living with me. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have anything going on. I'm like, oh my God, why are you torturing me? So I'm with and the divorce, is toxic and all that. And he's having a seizure. And I literally was like, I remember saying, I'm like, I don't get this. I don't hurt my kids. I'll go through cancer again. I'll have epilepsy. I'll just give it to me. And I really have just come to that space of like, everything has a reason and a season, and you have to understand that these are all part of the human experience and part of the journey. And staying in the fetal position, feeling sorry for myself, is not a way to live in service and to help others. So just with that story, I want to share that I met Oprah once. I didn't really meet her. I was in the after show and asked her a question, but I don't know why in this story. I'm always like, I met Oprah. I said, I didn't meet Oprah, but I met Oprah. I said Oprah. I didn't say Oprah. I said Ms. Winfrey. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who aspired for your level of success? And she said, you can never aspire for anybody else's level of success. Success is a byproduct of living in service of others. And that to me that lands along with surrender and faith. Live a life of service. You are going through something because your journey will be somebody else's survival guide. And I know that lands with you. I know you've been through the ringer, and I know that you're using your experience to help others and show that you can get through this. Look, you're a doctor now. I mean, I can barely get through my daughter's 5th grade math. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. But I think those are the things, the survivorship that I lean on is, I'm meant to serve. I'm meant to help others. That is what the purpose of life is, to live a life of purpose. And all of these things are intertwined. And I've never, I haven't figured out the epilepsy part of service yet. I don't, but I'm in it and I'm experiencing it, and it has all the feels, I get all the feels. And I want to, this is the human experience, and I'm getting all of them. It's very scary to live with a child with epilepsy. It's a constant state of like panic. And he got seizures. Now that's part of my life. But I still, he's living his best life, just like his mother. I'm like, let's get back up. Let's get back in the game. Like, all right, let's keep going. Let's figure it out. Take your moment to kick rocks. Take your moment to be in the fetal position, but you were not meant to stay there. Nobody was meant. Everyone has purpose, potential, servitude, and the universe needs you to get back on the feet and live out that service. Those are my thoughts.
You're not meant to stay there. You're meant to get back up. And it reminds me of your brand name, your club name, your podcast name, Bearing It All. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with that name. I just love it.
I love that question because bear has so many connotations to it. Bear is being authentic and raw and vulnerable and transparent, right? But it's also about the things that we bear, the things that we bear as mothers, as sisters, as daughters, as just human beings, the things, the weights, the troubles that we bear and the burdens that we understand, that we go through. And it's also about being a bear, like a mother bear, like a fierce warrior bear. Like, what is your bear? Like, I am a sister bear. My brother has special needs. Like, I will advocate to the end of time for the most vulnerable members of society. And, what kind of, so the Bearing It All Club is all about authenticity, transparency, and adding value. So yeah, Bearing It All is all about being no bullshit, all the, stop comparing your highlight reel to, everyone else's highlight, especially mine. Don't compare my highlight reel without talking about the back of the house. And I love to show a little bit more of the back of the house. I don't think I'm as good as I can be or will be, but it's a process for me. It's a process for all of us. So my Bearing It All Club is all about sharing the grit behind the glamour. And I am writing a book all about that. So get excited for that. But I think that's what women want from each other, and what humans want from each other is we want to know the grit. And that's where people start connecting with me. Like, they see me on TV and they're like, oh, that's pretty. You're pretty. But then I'm like, You want to hear about the battles I waged? You want to hear my war stories? Let's have some, let's have a brewski. Not that I drank beer, but and talk. And that's where we all connect, and we've all been through things. So that's what the club is all about. Being the bear. Bear.
Well, I love it. And you said something that's profound, and I want to highlight it, is that, in a sense that you can't judge a book by its cover, right? That people will see you and will think you have it all, and that you just woke up out of your mom's womb and this is Barbara, versus the journey, the grit, chemo, the toxic divorce. I mean, your son's sickness and all this stuff, all these things that have happened have really gotten you to the place where this is Barbara. And I think you and I are the same heights. We're both wearing heels that night. I think we're both 5'3".
We are big in personality. I think I'm so much taller than I am. I'm like, wow, how am I the smallest person in this picture? Always.
Well, absolutely. Well, when it comes to small packages, we give a big bang.
That's right.
We certainly appreciate you being here with us. We have a commercial break, and then we come back. I want to ask you about this anonymous letter that you share publicly about, and some lessons you've learned from that, especially as we talk about the arena. So we are here with Barbara Majeski, lifestyle expert, on-air contributor to the Today Show. And we'll be right back on Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacy.
Are you often attracted to unavailable partners? Feel like you can't stay but can't leave a toxic relationship? Obsessed with thinking about a current or former lover? Feel resentful that you're always taking care of the other person? The Woman Redeemed Therapy Program is for women who want to break free from toxic relationship patterns so they can find the love they truly deserve. This program is a safe, nurturing environment essential for building self-worth and acquiring the tools to work through challenges and create your best self. We invite you to begin the journey today to start building the new you. Call 407-622-1770 or visit lifecounseling.solutions.com. That's lifecounseling.solutions.com. You are listening to Let's Talk About It with Dr. Janie Lacy. To reach the show today, please call into 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to Janie at lifecounseling.solutions.com. Now back to Let's Talk About It.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacy. We are here with our special guest, Barbara Majeski, on-air contributor to the Today Show, lifestyle expert, and so much more. Welcome back to the show, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm loving this conversation. I hope everybody is too.
Absolutely. Not love talking to Barbara. Before we went to the break, I was bringing up about this anonymous letter. Left the for the listeners and the viewers. But, being in the same space, I often heard you share a story, and I want you to share it with us. And you share publicly about this anonymous letter that you received during a very rough time in your life. Can you share with us some of the lessons that you learned to help other people who get kicked by faceless, nameless, or just strangers on the internet?
Okay, so I'm going through a divorce. I'm dealing with epilepsy. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm doing television from home, and I'm pretty much just in survival mode. And we've all been in survival mode. And somebody sent me the meanest email, and it literally punched me in the gut. And I can't find it because it's in a screenshot somewhere on my miserable computer, and I can't find it. But I'm going to tell you where it started, and it went worse from there. The subject line says, Barbara, please stop embarrassing yourself. So I'm putting myself on social media every day, promoting to support small businesses, because small businesses in the pandemic were doing like whatever they could to sell their stuff, whether they were toy stores or food. I'm in a small town, and I saw everybody going out to Wegmans. I was like, don't go to Wegmans. There's a small, so I kept promoting check out our small businesses. So I was trying to keep myself in the game of, and just trying to help others. This email starts, Barbara, please stop embarrassing yourself and stop posting or something. It's please don't embarrass yourself. And then it goes, your friends don't have the heart to tell you, but you need to stop embarrassing yourself. And then it just went down from there. And the worst of it is there was something in there. There are two things in there that nobody knew because I never put it on social media. I did not talk about it. It was a small, I think 3 people knew about this one thing. It was, so I had flown privately after Max had gotten sick. It doesn't matter. But nobody knew that I had chartered a plane, but also nobody knew why I had chartered a plane. And they didn't know that I was dealing with seizures and I was in a complete panic. And listen, I can write the check and I want to take care of my kid, but they didn't know that part, but they did know about the plane for whatever reason. And they stuck it to me. And it's not public information. I don't post it. I don't post that anywhere. And it landed. I was like, oh my God, I don't have any. And that's when I say, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I don't need to do this. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do any. And I was like 3 seconds away from delete, close every social media account, every, like literally shut down any television I had been doing to that point. I was so hurt. And the part was like, I didn't know which friend had done this to me. I don't know, because it came in on an email that was jumbled. So that mean email literally came from a total coward. But instead of quitting, I decided I'm a little wounded, but I'm going to keep showing up. You know, when you're not in the mood to do something, but you know you need to do it anyway, I still did it. I still did the post of the day of the business to support here in Princeton. And I still, you know, did my lives on Instagram. And even though I was like, well, who's watching me? Who's taking stock? Here's the takeaway. What other people say about you is a reflection on them than it will ever be of you. And I showed my power because I never quit. They tried to take me down. And why somebody was so involved in my life and was so negative only reflects that they were in a bad place. Because when people are in a good place, they don't really care. They're not spending time dissecting your business. What are you doing dissecting my business? You take care of your business. Get out of my business. But they're so miserable that they're attacking mine. It is a reflection on the other person. And if you are going to be in the arena of life and get in the game, you better buck up, because emails are going to come in and people are going to try to steal your thunder. They're going to try to take away your mojo, because when your light shines bright, it can blind other people because they want to stay in the darkness and they want to keep you there. And it is your job to put those reflectors and just beam it higher. I was like, all right, you coming at me? I'll see you on TV next week. You know what I ended up doing because of that email? I reached out to a couple of producers. I've got some great ideas. I'd love to do a couple more segments this month. So I was supposed to do like 2 segments that month. I think I did 6. And I was like, really? You think you're going to slow me down? Watch me. And my next segment was supporting local businesses in the area. So I was like, oh, honey, you got the wrong woman. Yeah, she got the right woman. She got under my skin. I still talk about it. But I'm telling you, when I make that chapter 1 and I put it out there and I put it in a frame, it's to show others that that is a reflection on them. The other thing to take away from that is that understanding that, I forget what I was going to say. I had a really good, oh my God, my brain, it's 8 o'clock at night here. But it is so important that that is not a reflection on you, and that you have to understand, this is what I remembered. Okay. You are going to have mistakes and you're going to misstep, and people are going to, it's like Michael Jordan was like, yeah, you guys all celebrate all the accolades and everything else, but I also missed a million shots. And I also missed game-winning points. And I also didn't want to show up the next day because my whole team hated me, and all the Monday quarterbacks or whatever, you know, the couch quarterbacks were handing my, you know, ass to me on a platter. This is part of being in the arena. And you have to be okay with that too. It's part of it. I went on the Today Show 2 weeks ago, and I did a smokeless fire pit that I was really excited about. And Hoda asked me, she said, Barb, how does this smokeless fire pit work? Now, I knew this question was coming because I had the same question, and that's how I prepare. I wonder what they're going to ask me. But I was like, I don't have time to research how smokeless fire pit works because I got to get on TV. And so I wanted to say sorcery. but I'm from New Jersey. So it came out sorcery and I could not fix it. I was like, it's sorcery. And I could not read. I was like, it's magic. And I'm kind of laughing inside, but my kids made fun of me that night. I was like, I said the word sorcery on the air, and they're like, ah. But the truth is, listen, it was a mistake and it makes me human. And I am not going to spend one iota of a second feeling humiliated or embarrassed, because now that's part of my story. Nobody's going to take it away from me. And if anybody calls, oh, she's an idiot, she can't say sorcery, that's not a reflection on me. It's a reflection on the person that's calling me an idiot. Because guess what? I'm in the game of life. I'm on your damn TV. I'm with Hoda and Jenna on one of the most iconic morning programs in America. So maybe I'm not that big of an idiot, but maybe when there's a one finger pointing at me, there's 4 pointing back at you. And that's what you need to understand that. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to make an ass out of yourself. I was with the attorneys, the celebrity attorneys, and I'm in a meeting and my attorney is like out to lunch. When they do the movie of my life, my attorney is like hungover or something. She is checked out. Don't know what's going on. I don't know. I still don't know what's going on over there. And the case is going so bad and we're just meeting and they're just slaughtering me. They're like, literally, it's toxic land. And I'm like, I got to get out. So I want to be very dramatic. I want to be very dramatic. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead. I'm going to leave. Like I made a dramatic exit. I was like, I think we're done here. And I pack up all my stuff and I stand up and I went to go open the glass door, but I pulled it the wrong way or something. I thought it was going to push out, but whatever happened, I walked right into that glass wall. I walked right into the glass wall, just made and so I could hear my ex-husband's attorneys laughing at me, And it wasn't like the exit I wanted to make. No, I wanted to look all like, we're scared of her. We're scared of her. Right. She stands up for herself. She doesn't want to play glass door. I mean, when the movie comes out, there's me blood gushing and I have a concussion. I died, the whole 9 yards. But you know what? I was like, I remember feeling embarrassed and all that. And I was like, I've rewritten that script. I'm like, that's a really funny kind of, that's really embarrassing. But I get to own that now. I'm like, no. You don't get to tell the story. I'm going to tell the story. And it's going to be in the movie because I want to show up flawed and fabulous at the same time. And I want people to see that I'm an idiot sometimes and I make mistakes, but I keep showing up because I'm in the arena. And now I'm going to have to post that arena quote tomorrow because we're talking about the feels of life and some of them suck. And then some of them are awesome, but you got to get in the game. You got to get in the game and be okay with the suckery. I had that on the sorcery, the suckery. You got to be okay with the sorcery and the suckery. And at the end of the day, they still invited me back on the Today Show. I'll be on next week. I'm like, let's see what I can do next week. And I'll be on the Plaza. So I'm like, I'm going to mess up. I'm messing up in front of a live audience and a live audience. So
you definitely have a Netflix top 10. I can see the movie scene in my head as you're playing out your life script. But, there's two things I want to pull out too, because, in my own life, there's some things I've learned and I know you're going to resonate with this. For one, when people that we allow close to us, that when they betray us or they criticize us, they're usually people that are not doing better than us. I'm just saying. You're on the Today Show, you're reoccurring, you're killing the game, right? So faceless people, people that want to betray, usually the people that take the time to criticize and, as you said, investigate someone else's life, it's usually because they don't have a life truly of their own or they're not doing better than you. It's the first thing. And the second thing, which I want to lead into a question, right? I always use the example of, in my own betrayals of close friends, of thinking of, we're always looking for that cobra to strike, but it was that python that was real close to you, right? And as Tim Story, who I had on a previous episode, talked about, people can't stab you in the back if you don't give them your back, right? So reminded me of the Jim Rohn quote that I think I even saw it on your Instagram. Or you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So after you've walked through that in life, what does it look like for Barbara today so we can glean from your wisdom and who you surround yourself with? And how do you vet people, especially if you had a snake that was in your camp?
I'm going to say this, a leopard doesn't change its spots. And, there's that story about the scorpion. I forget, like it's the scorpion always stings. And I used to do this with my ex-husband all the time. Like I would do something and he would do like something that I found very egregious. And my therapist was like, but he's a scorpion stings. This is what he does. And yet you keep expecting different result. Like you expect the way that you would behave, and he just doesn't behave that way. And when I started taking authority of like, I just keep reacting, and I started being like, oh, I'm the only thing I can do is control how I respond and not react, and then not set myself up for it. So I've become very conscious of toxic dynamics by reverse engineering of how we got there and what role did I play and how do I avoid it. And I do a lot of self-reflection and ownership of like, okay, how can I get better outcomes? And not be like, oh my God, the scorpion stung again. And, like all these things, I'm like, not be so like on my heels. So I think that's one of them. And, I remember, a story about my mom. She unfriended somebody on Facebook. This is in the early years. We don't really understand Facebook, and we're friending and unfriending. And she unfriended somebody. I was like, why'd you unfriend her? She goes, well, she did this to me. And I like started hysterical laughing. I'm like, yeah, but that's Aunt Helen. Aunt Helen does that. That's why are you unfriending Aunt Helen for being Aunt Helen? Like you just literally unfriended her for being exactly who she's always been. And you just have to start accepting all these things. Like I accept my ex-husband's why he is, I'm like, oh, no, that's why you're an ex-husband, but it doesn't matter. What matters is, and he's a good man. And I do speak high of him in Clubhouse because I've taken a lot, I think that's another thing is just take the good and leave everything else, protect your energy, do things and be very self-aware of your own paradigm in these relationships. And when I talk about my ex-husband, and I do try to, he's the father of my kids, my marriage was not a failure. My marriage ran its course and it ended. And he played it when we got into divorce, he came to play and I showed up with, I don't know, a popsicle stick to a sword fight. I just wasn't equipped, which will be part of my story also. But he's a great dad. And I have 3 great kids, and it's just, I only fail if I fail to learn the lessons and the takeaways. And I have I learn from him every day. What, I'm learning right now, but it's true. Like I learn how to not put myself in a toxic paradigm with him, where I end up triggered and acting like a lunatic.
I think the key that I want to highlight for those that are listening and watching, especially in my woman redeem community, is that we can't change anyone else. You have to accept people for who they are. The only person we can change is us, and how you respond to people. And responding to them is also what I'm hearing Barbara say. I'm just putting it in my own words, is sometimes they don't need to have the front row seat to your life. They can be in the balcony, or if they really mess around, you call the security and get them kicked out, right? So you focus on you and not necessarily try to paint someone else to be different, because there's so many people that, only if he would do this or only if she would do that, versus to your point, looking at your part to play. I want to take a quick left turn here. I want to talk a little bit about the Today Show, and this part is, how do you find the inspiration in your creative genius, especially, right now with Halloween treats and the pumpkin carving hats and the mummy, as I was showing my son the video, where does that come from? Is that a gift for you? Are those things that you've done with your own kids?
That's such a good question. I am a curator. And what that means is that I find, I test, and then I share all the fabulous stuff. I am not a creative genius. I'm not Martha Stewart. I am none of that. I am a curator. That means I test things and then I'm like, you got to try this. That is exactly what I'm like. You got to test this out. Do this. So when I find something, and I like the simple stuff. I don't like my pumpkin carving TikTok that has probably 10 million views at this point. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. That's something I would exaggerate on, and I'm not. But is using a cookie cutter and a mallet, and you just have. And I've found that hack years ago. It's not a Barbara Majeski original. I got people commenting, Martha Stewart did this years ago. I'm like, I did not invent this wheel. I'm not going to pretend it is. And I don't know that Martha invented it either. I don't care. The point is I just curate. So like the mummies, what we're talking about is you get these hot dogs and then crescent rolls. That's it. Your hot dogs, your crescent rolls. You probably got both of them and you know where to find them in your grocery store. You cut them into little doughy slivers and you wrap the hot dog like a mummy. You bake it. Your kids think you're the best mother. And this takes no time and is so easy. It's piggies in a blanket. So yeah, that's where I find my ideas is I'll go on Pinterest and something I think we're all curators. We're like, that's cool. And so I'm just curating the good life. That's what I call myself. I'm a curator and I curate the good life with mind, a mentality, like purpose. In like a mindset is also like I curate those quotes. They're not I don't think I've had an original thought in my entire life, but I do pull together really good quotes and I pull it together and then I can share it. And sometimes the way that you share it, the way that I share it or somebody else shares it, like Brene Brown, it's just landing for us. Like, it's like, and we've heard it a million different ways. Like Tony Robbins says a lot of the same stuff that Gary Vee says, or Grant Cardone, they don't, maybe it's not it's not the message, but maybe the messenger that doesn't always land. So I just sometimes curate like the Jim Rohn quote, maybe how you say it, all of a sudden your clients, your friends, they're like, oh my God, she's so right. I need to surround myself with 5 people because I'm the average of the 5 schmoes that I hang out with. I better make sure those schmoes are, some good schmoes. Go find it. You can take some good hash. There's a Barbara Majeski. Schmoes. Go find yourself 5 good schmoes. And then saucery is mine.
Saucery,
and you know what? Suckery is mine.
Suckery.
So maybe a suckery. So maybe I do have original thoughts, but that honestly, I think it's an important question because I don't want people to feel like they need to like come up with some like new invention of the light bulb. Sometimes it's just taking things so you can serve others and just crafting it in a narrative that works and help others. I don't know. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. I do like to give credit where credit is due when I can find the person who, came up with the idea. I am always saying who the person and the quotes come from, or I don't know where the mummy dogs came from. They're lost in the sauce of the internet, but feel free to DM me that you are the originator of the crescent mummies and I will give you the credit.
Well, they do say there's nothing new under the sun. So that curating is maximizing and then bringing it to the full. I think it's so awesome. So,
yeah, we're all curators. Yes.
So talk to me a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about your kids and obviously what you feel comfortable with. But what is it like for you to be a parent of a senior as you reflect on raising your beautiful kids? Because you look like a lot younger than having a senior, we must say.
A lot goes into that look. Let's just say that. That's another conversation. Ain't no shame in my Botox game, but thank you. So I love I'm so close with my kids. I love being a mom. Being a senior, I cannot believe I get very emotional about everything and it drives him nuts. I did go to my TikTok. I have a very cool gift and somebody gave me this idea and then I reshared it. So somebody told me this years ago, put a box in your kids' closet. And then every time they do sports or a play or something, some sort of like t-shirt, put it in the box. And then when they go to college, you'll make a quilt of these t-shirts. And I took the advice right away. And I put this like zipper bag that was an expandable one. So I think that was the smarter play. So it didn't take up a lot of room. It was an expandable bag. And for the Today Show, I actually was going to use it in one of my segments and they took it off the table, but I will use it. Anyway, it's a quilt of all of his t-shirts. When I opened it, I was so verklempt. That is a Yiddish word for a little emotional. And I could tell he was too when I gave it to him. And he was like, oh my God. So I did a TikTok on that. And I just think it's a really great idea. So for anybody that's hearing, it is again, me hearing something and sharing it. And I also found a really great company, t-shirtblankets.com, that supports the hearing impaired community. They employ them and they also give back. It's a great organization. So yeah, so that's my thing. I got a senior, and then I've got his brother Max coming in right behind him as a sophomore, and then I got Miss America, 5th grade. So I got to be parenting for a long time. But thank you. I love them. Certainly
a beauty. Your daughter's beautiful. But
I get that.
As we wind down this episode in the last 2 minutes, so let's actually talk about Max. So your Max is now 35, Barbara, and he's getting his mental health checkup, and he finds a safe place in America's favorite psychotherapist's office. And she asked about his childhood. She asked him to reflect on who his mother was to him in his younger years. What does he say?
You know, I hope he says I was a true warrior and never, I spoke up and I spoke loud for the things that I really believed in. I was a huge advocate, not only for his uncle, Stephen, but I was a big advocate for him in the spaces I needed to be in. Sometimes they call me Mrs. Goldberg because Beverly Goldberg from the Goldberg was very outspoken. And I think I hope that he knows that although sometimes I'm cringy, my heart and my intentionality is always in the space of service, advocating for my children, for my community, and for what I believe to be right. And I think that's what I'll say. And I was tough as nails and a little scary, even though I'm not that tall.
My mom was tough as nails and a little scary.
I think, a little scary at times, but loved I love my kids and I love his friends. And his friends know I love them. I love them. I told them the other day, I'm like, I'm going to Venmo request your asses if you don't clean up after yourselves. But I can say that because they know I love them. But I'm like, don't you mess with Mrs. Majeski or Ms. Majeski, whatever.
Don't mess with Barbara Majeski. And we have truly enjoyed and we're delighted that you joined us on Let's Talk About It with Janie Lacy. So real quick, how can people follow you if they want to continue to get to know you and follow your journey?
BarbaraMajeski.com. Follow me on Instagram at Barbara Majeski, and follow me on the TikTok at Barbara Majeski, and Clubhouse Barbara Majeski. I keep it simple because I like to keep it simple.
Well, Barbara Majeski, wherever you go, and we certainly appreciate you being here. So in the words of our special guest, if you feel like you're losing everything, remember that the trees lose their leaves every year and they still stand tall and wait for better days to come. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Janie Lacy.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's Talk About It can be heard live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Please join your host, Dr. Janie Lacy, for another edition of the show next week.